Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast, Giant star wideout Odell Beckham Jr. joins us in studio, plus reaction to Ted Wells as he defends his investigation. And will the Cavs send the Bulls home after Game 6 in Chicago? All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. Carrie Champion here with Skip Bayless, and Stephen A. Smith is in Philly. Stephen A., how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How y'all doing?
I'm good.
I am doing wonderfully because I cannot wait to talk about these first two topics.
All right, well, then let's get right to it.
Whoa. Don't lie to America like that.
About what? What
it's not about two topics. It's about the 2 hours.
Yeah.
Don't limit our
Yes,
success to 2 topics.
I'm obsessed with the first two topics.
I really do.
Wait a second.
I really do.
Where are your glasses today? You cannot see clearly right now.
I like him without his glasses today.
Well, I like the look.
I must confess to you, I forgot it at my house, and it's too damn hot to wear a tie.
Okay.
I ain't gonna lie.
No, he has a youthful look to him.
Yeah, he
today.
does.
He cut his hair, looks good. You look good.
I do. Skip.
How do you know he cut his hair?
I can
Thank
tell.
you so much.
I can tell. You got a haircut, right, Stephen A?
Yes. After watching you and Eva Longoria talk about my haircut, yes, I did. Go ahead, get a haircut, Carrie Champion.
Eva Longoria
said I needed a haircut. I got it for her.
Hey, Eva. Thanks for watching.
Now, on to business.
Coming up on the show today, he surprised the league with his skill set and nearly broke the internet with his one-handed catch. We're talking about Odell Beckham Jr. He's here on behalf of EA Sports, who will join the desk in the second hour. I'm excited to meet him. Oh, stop it, Stephen A. But let's get to the topic, okay? First topic, Ted Wells has responded to critics and claims that his report on the Deflategate investigation appeared biased and incomplete. Mr. Wells said the idea that there was some type of hit on the most popular player in the league just doesn't make sense. Here's Ted Wells on wanting to see Tom Brady's text messages.
I want to be crystal clear. I told Mr. Brady and his agents I was willing not to take possession of the phone. I said, I don't want to see any private information. I said, you keep the phone. You, the agent, Mr. Yee, you can look at the phone. You give me documents that are responsive to this investigation, and I will take your word that you have given me what's responsive. And they still refused.
There was a lot to get through. Let's also tell you about what he said about Jim McNally, also known as the deflator in the investigation.
NFL security people talked to McNally on 3 occasions. They talked to him on the night of the game for approximately 40 minutes. They talked to him the next morning by telephone for about 20 minutes. They talked to him in person, I believe the next day, for about 30 minutes. Those are the 3 interviews. The Patriots urged me when I got into the case to start fresh, not to pay any attention to what NFL security had done. In fact, they thought the people at NFL security were biased. They applauded when I said I'm starting fresh. And for them later on to say I could not even have a second interview of the most important person in the case was just a lack of cooperation.
All right, so Skip Bayless, what do you think of Ted Wells defending his report?
Stephen A. Smith, I must admit to you, I was astounded that a man of Ted Wells' stature felt that he needed to publicly defend himself in a conference call to reporters. I thought it indicated some weakness on his part. I thought it was a sign of insecurity on his part and uncertainty on his part. I thought that he really let Tom Brady's agent, Don Yee, get under his skin. Don Yee really hit a nerve deeply in Ted Wells, and I would say that has got to be advantage Tom Brady in what is about to escalate into quite a conflict here that could wind up in court. Again, a man of Ted Wells' stature, if he truly believes in the report that he headed, if he truly believes in the objectivity in his overseeing of that report, he should let that report stand on its own merit. He should let that report speak for itself. But again, the facts are the facts, that Ted Wells and his very powerful law firm have benefited greatly and financially over the years from its relationship and his relationship with the National Football League. Obviously, Ted Wells and that firm have represented the NFL on many of the concussion lawsuits. It represented the NFL as it did the investigation of the bullying case with the Miami Dolphins. And reportedly, Ted Wells and his firm were paid up to $5 million, somewhere between $4 and $5 million for the investigation of the Patriots. And for that much money, the conclusion he drew was it's more probable than not that Tom Brady had general knowledge that the footballs were being deflated. It's a pretty flimsy conclusion for up to $5 million. And despite all the audio we just heard, the key audio for me was the glaring discrepancy in the Wells report that Ted Wells would not address yesterday. He handed off to his partner and let him try to explain about which gauge the referee Walt Coleman used before the game to measure the footballs. There's a big discrepancy. There were two gauges, and Walt Coleman said he couldn't remember which gauge he used before the game. Two gauges were then used at halftime to measure the footballs, and one of those gauges on the PSI said that the balls were legal. So what's what here? And Ted Wells really had no explanation because his partner was very vague in his responses to a question I thought Ted Wells should have answered. So in the end, I'm shocked that Ted Wells thought he needed to defend himself, which indicates that he might have some doubt here about what was involved in the conclusion of the Wells report.
Well, I'm shocked that somebody like yourself, who works for a living defending every position that he takes, doesn't understand how somebody else can feel compelled to do the same on their own behalf when they believe their professional and personal integrity are being attacked. I have no problem with Ted Wells deciding to elaborate extensively on his position, what transpired during the investigation, etc. As I think about what Don Yee, Tom Brady's agent, has said about Ted Wells in the past, one of the sentences that I looked up, Skip Bayless, to really highlight something that could have potentially perturbed Ted Wells and provoked him to feel the need to address reporters in a teleconference was this sentence right here, when Don Yee says something along the lines, this suggests it may be more probable than not that the league cooperated with the Colts in perpetrating a sting operation. Then he goes on to say the Wells report buries a particular issue, or a footnote on page 46 without any further elaboration. The league is a significant client of the investigator's law firm. It appears to be a rich source of billings and media exposure based on content in the law firm's website. So you say something like that, you're attacking this man's professional integrity, along with that of the reputation of his law firm. If you know that you've been on the up and up and you've gone about the business of conducting this investigation in an appropriate fashion, you're damn right you should stand up and address it on a personal level and take heed to that kind of stuff that's being spewed about you and respond in kind. And that's what Ted Wells did. I have no problem with it. To me, what resonates profoundly is how he talked about looking at Tom Brady's emails and text messages and saying or requesting to look at it and then being debunked. He pointed out how he'll take your word for it. Just show him stuff completely relevant to the case at hand. He said, I'm not going to take the phone with me. I'm not asking to take it in my possession. A matter of fact, I'm not even asking to look through your phones. Simply show me the text messages from your phone or show me the emails that you have related to this incident in question so we can conclude our investigation. And still, he was denied that request. That resonates profoundly to me. And if I remember correctly, just a few days ago, it resonated profoundly with you because you were on the record, Skip Bayless, saying you don't understand. If Tom Brady's innocent, why couldn't he do something like this? Why couldn't he grant this request? You were on the record sitting there saying that as much as you want to support Tom Brady, in this particular instance, this Wells report definitely indicts him, and it definitely makes him look guilty. It was you that used the report to supplement some of the skepticism that you already had based on Tom Brady's press conference a few months ago, Super Bowl week, or the week before Super Bowl week, and all of this other stuff. So to me, I don't understand how we can't comprehend not only Wells' position, but why he would feel the need to literally piggyback off of it and substantiate his claims yet again. And my last point is this. When you talk about probably aware, probably guilty, etc., well, according to NFL bylaws, that's all you need. You don't need to venture beyond that to make a case against this individual, even if it does happen to be Tom Brady. This is not the court of law. This is the court of the National Football League. Just like the military has its own code of conduct, and it comes to its conclusion based on a preponderance of evidence it deems fitting and suitable for what they do, the NFL has their own rules as well. And this is how they've conducted this, and this is how they're going about it. I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Okay, allow me to defend myself against your last accusation. The morning after the Wells report broke, again, I was a prisoner only of reading the Wells report, and I was the first to admit to you, I went first that day, and I said, this report contains pretty convincing circumstantial evidence. I said there is no smoking gun. There's no direct link that Tom Brady told this guy to do this to the footballs. There's none of that in there. But it's all what we know about the text messages. We know about the nickname, the Deflater. We know that Tom Brady said, no, you can't have my phone, though you said you would not allow anybody to have your phone either. That's what you said. I said you can have my phone anytime. You can have after the show, I'll give you my phone. You can look through every text message. I don't care. That's just me personally. But again, Tom Brady said no, and you said you're okay with that. Go ahead.
Oh, I said I was okay with him not giving the phone. I did not say I was okay with him not showing the text messages or the emails, particularly pertaining to the issue in question.
But
I'm not going to hand you my phone and give anybody.
You told Brady's attorney, sift through it and just show us the relevant. Well, that's ridiculous. It's either give the phone up or don't give the phone up.
Well, no, that's not ridiculous. In an investigation, if Ted Wells is on the record saying, I'm not leaving your site, nor am I leaving this room with your cell phone, I'm just asking you to show me the text messages pertinent to the issue.
Well, how could you trust he's showing you the right text messages? How could you trust that? That would be silly.
But Ted Wells, see, Skip, I can't do this with you. Ted Wells said, I will take your word for it.
Okay.
Just show me something. That's what he said.
Okay.
So that's what we have to go by.
Tom Brady said there is nothing. Because he continues to tell, as I told you, his confidants he is utterly innocent here.
But Ted Wells said, they said no. He didn't say I have nothing to show you. He said no, he refused to show him anything. There's a difference.
Okay,
There's a difference between saying I don't have any text messages as opposed to saying no, you cannot see it in my cell phone
here's what I
or my
don't know
email.
whether to trust or not. Don Yee continues to say that much of Brady's testimony directly to Ted Wells didn't show up in the report. So I don't know, which is why we're about to get into where is this headed? Is it headed to court? So to finish up on Ted Wells, he continued to say this is a ridiculous accusation. This one and this one, these are all ridiculous. If they're that ridiculous, you should not give them any weight, any credibility by responding to them in public. Stephen A., I think that Roger Goodell sat back yesterday and said, what is he doing? Because it makes him look weak. You don't need to respond to that.
But
just let your report speak for itself.
In fairness to you, Skip Bayless, it's not that he's wrong. It's that he's not you. He doesn't think like you because you are quick to remind us all on Twitter and beyond. Don't respond. Don't hit send. Ignore everybody because that's what you do. So let's understand that you don't necessarily have a problem with him. You have a problem with that methodology because inherently you are completely opposed to it. You're not telling Ted Wells anything different than you'd say to any of us.
That's correct.
Because you firmly believe,
absolutely,
universally, we should never respond. And obviously, I feel different. Sometimes I think most of the time I think you should respond. Sometimes I think it's okay to cut somebody out. That's the difference between us.
Well, look, if you, I don't know, the example, if we step out of bounds on this show and you feel like you need to explain why you said what you said, I get that. That's fine with me. This is a report that took months, wasn't it? Yeah, months to assemble. And it's how many pages? I forget what it is. 243 pages. You had plenty of time to stand behind every word you wrote. So let them speak. Let them stand.
But he's not just talking. He's not talking about just the words. His personal integrity is being challenged.
All right, let's move on.
That's what he's addressing.
Yep.
Wells also added that he was specifically addressing Don Yee's accusations. That's why he wanted to talk about it. Tom Brady has until 5 Eastern Time Thursday to appeal his suspension. Once Brady files the appeal, the NFL will have 1 week to appoint an arbiter to hear the case. Our Adam Schefter on the appeal.
Your sources on that phone say they can win the appeal.
Yeah, it's funny. I got a text today, and I'll just read you the text, okay? It came from somebody that's connected in some way, okay?
To the story.
To the story. And the text came and says, Brady's team is unreal, I guess.
What's that mean?
And that was my text back. Unreal in what sense? Unreal in what sense? And they said, talented, big-name lawyers, Yee, Kessler, etc. Prediction equals won't miss a game. Look, there are people that believe that Tom Brady will have a legitimate chance to have his suspension reduced, if not overturned.
Right, Adam Schefter's sources saying that Tom Brady may get his suspension reduced, if not overturned. Skip, what's your reaction to what Schefter had to say?
Okay, first of all, to leap off what you were talking about in our previous topic, many people have leaped to the conclusion, because Tom Brady has not once publicly defended himself, that he is guilty of cheating. He has now become the object of national ridicule because he has not publicly defended himself. So, as I continue to talk to people close to Brady over the last 2 or 3 days, it came clear to me, as I've said in the last couple of days on this show, Tom Brady privately is telling all of his confidants he is 100% innocent and that he was wrongly convicted. And as I told you yesterday, he and his team are ready to go to legal war to prove his innocence here. So, again, he's not fighting back publicly, but he is going to fight Roger Goodell privately the way he fought the Seattle Seahawks in the fourth quarter of that last Super Bowl in which he was the MVP. You know how Brady fights on a football field? You're about to see him and his team, his superstar team, as the text said, fight back like you've never seen any player fight Roger Goodell to the end here. So, again, I'm starting to lean toward what the text said to Adam Schefter about he will not miss a game. I'm starting to lean in that direction, Stephen A., because, again, Roger Goodell has the option to pick whichever arbiter he wants. And if he picks Harold Henderson, a league man who's presided over the last few, the Adrian Peterson, now over Greg Hardy, maybe Tom Brady will lose on appeal. But that will just be the beginning of this fight, because it is going to go to court. And trust me on this, the one man who might have the most to lose in court is the commissioner of the National Football League, who has gained back such credibility over the last week or so for coming down so hard on those New England Patriots. Roger Goodell could lose a lot of that credibility if it's proven in court that the Wells report is wrong. And now we have a new player in the mix. We have Jeffrey Kessler, and I know you know who he is, Stephen A., because he has long been a thorn in the National Football League side, dating all the way back to that Freeman McNeil antitrust lawsuit that set up free agency in the National Football League. Jeffrey Kessler is brilliant, and he is unyielding. He can be just a pain in the behind is what he can be, but you want him on your team in this kind of matter. I think he will shred the Wells report. I don't think it will stand up in court, which is why I want to hear what starts to come out because, again, convincing circumstantial evidence in the Wells report, no smoking gun. I want a conclusion. I want to hear what comes out in court, and I think we'll hear from Tom Brady before this is done, and maybe you'll change your mind. Maybe you'll think he's innocent.
I sincerely doubt that, but I will tell you this. Jeffrey Kessler is obviously formidable. He is somebody that historically has been a guy representing players not just in the National Football League, but in the National Basketball Association, going up against the leagues and what have you. When you look at a bevy of collective bargaining agreements that have been reached, clearly he wasn't that formidable because no matter how competent or gifted he may be, these lawyers, these particular lawyers that represent these professional leagues on the other side, they're pretty damn competent themselves, not to mention the fact they're incredibly familiar with Mr. Kessler. He certainly gets paid well for doing what he does because he's ingratiated himself with players' associations in a variety of leagues, so his services are continuously utilized. How effective he may be is open for debate. Not to disrespect him because I know he's very good, but I'm just saying, in terms of the record itself, let's not get carried away. The second point that I'd like to make is this. There is a difference between proving that you're innocent and proving that the league itself didn't have enough evidence to levy the penalty against you that they levied. In other words, Tom Brady, with his team of hotshot lawyers, may get this suspension reduced. Ultimately, it can be such an ugly legal fight that the NFL could potentially concede, who knows, and just say, all right, to hell with it. Because ultimately, mission is accomplished. Attention was brought to bear that these kind of actions can't be tolerated. The New England Patriots as an organization have suffered a consequence. Tom Brady has suffered a consequence on a personal level because now half the world loving football views him as somebody who tried to skirt the rules in order to gain a competitive advantage. No matter what transpires in the court, unless you flat out prove that Tom Brady was lied on and he is completely innocent and completely exonerated to the point where the McNallys of the world and others come forth and like we lied and it never happened and we really did this for Jimmy Garoppolo and not Tom Brady. We really did this because Bill Belichick told us to and not Tom Brady. We really did this because Robert Kraft orders us to and not Tom Brady. Unless something like that happens, I don't understand how in any way imaginable Tom Brady can be completely exonerated of this. He is the quarterback. The deflated footballs benefit him more than they do anybody else. I was on the record, Skip, and still am on the record. I've always thought it's much ado about nothing. I don't give a damn if he threw a Nerf football. Didn't stop those dudes from getting open. Didn't stop it from hitting them while they were open. Didn't stop him from registering the points that he registered. He's still a 4-time Super Bowl champion, a future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players of our generation. I've got no issues with it. But I did not play in the NFL. Other dudes did. I spoke to Shannon Sharp. I spoke to Chris Carter, interviewed him yesterday, interviewed Shannon Sharp last week. We've heard other NFL aficionados, commentators, pundits speak against Tom Brady. They played in the NFL. And in the end, they are telling you, even Jeff Saturday came on and told me yesterday, it's no way that the quarterback didn't know. And Tom Brady said, I don't know what y'all talking about. No, it had nothing to do with me. That's where it's indictable. So on that level, there's no way he's going to be completely exonerated. Could he end up playing every game? Sure. I doubt it. I think at least 2 of the 4 games will be upheld, possibly all 4. But even if he doesn't play, even if he's not suspended for any game, Skip Bayless, the damage has already been done.
Okay, there I agree with you. Just in public perception, the many, many people out there who don't like Tom Brady and didn't like him before have leaped to the conclusion that will never be erased that he cheated. No matter what they hear about what comes out in court, he's a cheater. So the stain is the stain and it's indelible. I give you that much. I also want to make a quick point to you. You should stand back and think about this. You keep pointing to the quarterback. He had to know because he benefited the most. I'm not sure I agree with that. If you want to make a case for who benefits most from deflated footballs, I think the whole offense does because of fumbling or lack thereof. The easiest thing to do with the deflated football is to hold on to it. You can grip it better, which is why the Patriots have been known, and again, I'm not saying it's because they were deflated, but the Patriots have been known for not fumbling. That's been their mantra. That's been their calling card. So you can make that case. And that could go more to the head coach than to the quarterback. Just making that point.
Well, that's a valid point, but it's still the quarterback who touches the ball more than anybody, which means it's impossible to imagine that he didn't know. And by the way, my last comment, let's stop acting like it's just Patriot haters out there. Tom Brady has a lot of guys at this very network and various other networks. He has a lot of people in public who are not Patriot lovers, nor are they haters, who literally revere him because of his greatness, who have sat back and said, there's just no way he didn't know anything. Okay. There's just no way. So it's not all about the Patriot haters.
Last quick point, which you did not address. The key point here going forward is going to be this referee point about which gauge did he use. And again, it's very complicated to talk about it, so we don't need to try to delve into it because it boggles the mind.
Yeah, it's too much.
But trust me, that's the glaring discrepancy that they are going to home in on in a potential lawsuit.
Okay.
That's fair.
Well, Stephen A., you point out that there are people, not just Patriot haters, who do not believe Tom Brady. They said he had to know something about it. Obviously, Ted Wells defending the report. Top of the second hour, we'll address this subject again. The game last night, LeBron James recorded his 9th career postseason game with at least 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Only Elgin Baylor has more. Cleveland's 106-101 win has the team leading the series 3-2 as it heads back to Chicago for Game 6. LeBron James on the win.
We know it's going to be some games where it's going to be physical. And for me, my message to my guys is just play basketball.
I think we had a crack at it. We just didn't execute right. And we had a couple chances to tie it, and just didn't knock the shot down.
Physically, it's still, still have to get better, but it's just about being in the right spots and trying to be efficient for Bron and my teammates, trying to take as much pressure off of him. And I just commend him for putting us on his back and us, feeding off his energy and his drive.
All right, so Kyrie also looking better in that game, healthy perhaps. Stephen A., your biggest takeaway from the game?
Well, my biggest takeaway is the fact that Kyrie Irving wasn't down. He dropped 25 points last night. He shot like 9 of 16 from the field. He was effective. I'm just looking at his minutes right now. He played 39 minutes. 39 minutes. And that's a very, very big deal. We know the right foot, the left knee, that's been problematic for him. They diagnosed him with tendonitis. Nevertheless, he was able to go out there on the court last night. He outplayed Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose has about 16 points, but wasn't nearly as effective as he needed to be. Jimmy Butler really, really showed up. Even though LeBron dropped 38 and 12, he's LeBron. When he's in that kind of attack mode, there's little to nothing that anybody can do because he's the best player in the world. He's just too big, too strong, too much of a locomotive. But Jimmy Butler clearly held his own, had about 29 points, shot about 50% from the field. Really, really played well, but didn't have much help from their bench. They didn't get a lot, especially from Mirotic, they were minus 23 when he was on the floor. So he was definitely a liability. But my biggest takeaway, Skip, from the game is the fact that Kyrie is still capable of doing what he did last night. Because if Kyrie Irving can do that, then obviously the Cleveland Cavaliers still have a shot at making some noise the rest of this postseason. Without him, it's all on LeBron James' shoulders, and there's nothing that he's going to be able to do. There's only but so much he can be able to do, rather. And I think you need Kyrie. So Kyrie playing the way that he played, and more importantly, being able to give you those minutes on the court last night was a huge, huge plus. I think that what we saw from Chicago, a Game 7 seems destined for this series, even though it's entirely possible that the way Chicago struggles to score the basketball, that they could lose Game 6. But I'm predicting they'll probably win Game 6, and there will be a Game 7 like I predicted before this series even began. But in the end, as long as Kyrie's able to be on the floor and giving you some quality minutes, they're not losing this series.
I got to echo your point about Kyrie before I get to my point. he experienced some minor miracles of healing in both his foot and his knee, because he looked pretty mobile. I mean, that was pretty impressive. I'm not sure how he pulled that off, but to get 9 out of 16 shots was absolutely crucial. And I want to, again, applaud LeBron James. He was so much more efficient last night. That was a great game that he played to score 38 on only 24 shots. That's 14 out of 24. That's the flip side of what happened in Game 4 when he had 8 turnovers in that game last night. The key stat of the night, 0. LeBron James had 0 turnovers, and my hat is off to you, LeBron, for that, because you gave up 8 trips the last game. 8 times you gave the ball back to Chicago.
Seven before that.
And 7. Well, he was averaging 6 a game for 4 games, and all of a sudden he has a 0 game in a crucial game. Look, you've got to win that game to hold serve. Now, my punchline, my bottom line here is, I thought the Cavaliers were extremely lucky to win this game. At halftime, it looked like they were about to kill Chicago's will. Chicago was 0 for 9 from 3, and it looked like a blowout in the making. And if they had run Chicago off the floor, they might have run them psychologically completely out of the postseason, because Game 6 could be a foregone conclusion. But they let them creep back in the game, and that was despite Stephen A. The fact that Derrick Rose made 5 of his first 7 shots in the game, then he suffered another one of those stingers in his shooting arm, and you realize in the fourth quarter, Derrick Rose went 0 for 6, and he missed, I think, his last 11 shots. So you're doing it in spite of your superstar, Derrick Rose, and you're still hanging in a game that's a 2-point game with a minute left, and LeBron got away with a push-off offensive foul. He got called for 3 of them last time, or 2 of them on the push-offs in Game 4. But he should have been called for the foul on Dunleavy, and then LeBron did make up for it, or helped make up for it, by going the length of the court for the chase-down block on Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose really looked limited. And LeBron, he didn't fingertip block it. He blocked it with his wrist. That's how high up he got on Derrick Rose, who was shooting it sort of from the ground. But my point is, they were fortunate to win. I think they gave the Bulls life and new hope. And so now I'm starting to lean back toward you. I think the Bulls are going to feel pretty good about winning Game 6 at home and forcing a Game 7 back in Cleveland.
Totally agree with you. I just think that the Bulls are going to be fiery. They lost Game 4. I just think that the way they defend and the fact that they came back and fought back and almost, I mean, they were down by 3 points, in the last minute. I mean, they came back. They were in this game. They fought and fought and fought, and they just didn't have enough at the very, very end. I think they will on their home turf in the Game 6. I think that Cleveland, as Chicago puts its foot on the gas, I think that Cleveland will step back and try to conserve itself a little bit, or preserve themselves for Game 7 because of Kyrie. If Kyrie were 100%, they'd probably put the nail in the coffin in a Game 6. But because that's not the case, I think they'll try early on. But as the fight becomes that much more of an uphill battle, I think they will concede there's a Game 7 that we have to be concerned about, and they'll let their foot off the gas, and Chicago will preserve themselves and be ready for Game 7.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The Pelicans fired head coach Monty Williams on Tuesday, parting ways with a coach who had a strong relationship with the face of the franchise in Anthony Davis. The decision came weeks after owner Tom Benson congratulated Williams and the entire basketball operations staff for, quote, a job well done after a season in which they qualified for the playoffs.
I just want the fans to know that thankful for what they've done for me. I'm so indebted to them, and I don't have any bitterness in my heart, man. I'm a bit hurt, a bit scuffed up, but God has always been in control of my life, and I'm so blessed to have done what I've done here and be a part of this great city.
So, Stephen A., Monty takes the Pelicans to the playoffs for the first time since 2011. We're also being told, or it's being reported, Anthony Davis had no idea that he was being fired. He was made aware of that decision after the fact. How surprised were you?
Somewhat surprised, not totally surprised, because coming into this season, Monty Williams knew that he needed to make the playoffs in order to keep his job. The fact that he ultimately made the playoffs last game of the season when they beat the San Antonio Spurs, you were still hearing rumblings that they needed to make a good showing in the first round in order for him to keep his job, which said to me that ultimately the day would come where they would finally believe that they needed to move in a different direction. In his 5 years as coach, first year he took over the helm, they were 46-36 over the next 3 years. He was 21-45, 27-55, 34-48. So obviously they thought that, you know what, you needed to do something this year, particularly with the ascension of Anthony Davis seeming imminent. Well, what did? They go out and they win 45 games in a pretty tough Western Conference. They make the playoffs. So to say that he should have lost his job, no, we're not going to say that, because he definitely should still be the coach of the New Orleans Pelicans, regardless of what question marks may have existed about him. But I think, Skip Bayless, is that it's even more important for me to use this particular subject to point out something that I'm incredibly alarmed by. And I've alluded to this in the past. I'm going to do it for you right now, here again in front of both of your faces. At this particular juncture, in a league that's approximately 80% black, I think the number is 77 to be exact, but approximately 80%. There are now 30 teams. There are 6 black head coaches. 6. You've got Dwayne Casey in Toronto, who, by the way, could potentially lose his job. You've got Lionel Hollins in Brooklyn. You've got Derek Fisher in New York. You've got Jason Kidd in Milwaukee. You've got Doc Rivers and Byron Scott, both in L.A. The only people that are considered to have good jobs are Hollins, Jason Kidd, and Doc Rivers. And I look at this right now, and everybody's been talking about analytics or whatever. Let me break this down for you, Skip Bayless. And I tried to tell this to several of these coaches. What you see is a situation where there are guys focused on these numbers, these analytics guys. Why are they becoming so popular? Primarily, it's because they speak a language owners understand. So they come in there. The owners are able to hire them on the cheap. They ultimately hire folks they're comfortable with and they're in the know with, who are also on the cheap. Unfortunately, they're usually not black, and this is what you have right now. This is something that is in danger of becoming an epidemic, and I am shocked that no black players have spoken up about this. I'm not sitting here saying that 50% of the league needs to be black or whatever the case may be, but it shouldn't be 6 out of 30. It should clearly be more in a league that's predominantly African American. And these are coaches falling by the wayside. Jacques Vaughn, gone. Melvin Hunt might as well be gone. We already know that Monty Williams is gone. Melvin Hunt in Denver, in all likelihood, is not going to keep that job. And what are we hearing? We're hearing the name Tom Thibodeau. You know, in Oklahoma City, yes, Billy Donovan deserves an opportunity. He's obviously an exceptional collegiate coach. But on the professional level, when you have the personalities of a Kevin Durant, of a Russell Westbrook, you trying to tell me Amar Jackson could not have done that job? I'll even bring up my man Sam Mitchell, who's an assistant coach in Minnesota, who was former coach of the year in Toronto. I know everybody wants to poo-poo when I bring up Mike Woodson, but the reason I feel compelled to do that, because as a Knicks fan, when he had his last year at 37 and 45, which wasn't nothing to brag at home about, I remember the year before when they won 54 games and advanced to the semifinals of the Eastern Conference for the first time in 13 years. And yet we still hear some of these same old retreads or new dudes that have never played the game, all right? And because they know numbers, you know, they seem to be hot candidates. To me, it's a cause of concern, because there are a bevy of black coaches who have brought this to my attention, and they are incredibly concerned. And I'm here to say they have a right to feel that way, because the NBA historically does a fantastic job with diversity, and they ought to be applauded for that. But just like they're to be applauded for it, now they should be alarmed by this sudden trend we're seeing here. Because I'm telling you right now, black coaches are falling off the radar, and they're not getting an opportunity at these jobs the way that they should be. And somebody needs to say it. So, damn it, I'm going to do it.
I deeply appreciate you bringing this to the forefront. It's what this show tries to do, and because of you, it often succeeds. I appreciate that, and I respect it.
Thank you.
And by the way, just a quick point of order. I think it was reported yesterday Dwayne Casey is going to be able to keep his job. Not sure about that, but again, I hope so too. Now, back to Monty Williams. He's a good man. He's a very good basketball coach. His strongest advocate and supporter is one Greg Popovich, for whom he worked in San Antonio. I don't know why he lost his job. I'm not close to that situation with the Pelicans. Maybe there's internal things we don't know about. I have no idea. I just don't see on the face of it why he should have lost his job. They improved their record each of the last 3 years. And the superstar, a player that many around the league would say is on his way to becoming the most valuable player among GMs in the whole league, the guy who led in PER, player efficiency rating, in Anthony Davis. He loves this man. This man taught him most of what he knows about professional basketball. And remember, as you well know, Anthony Davis now has the option. He could play out his deal with the Pelicans. It would take, 2 more years to do that? But he could hit the open market if he so chose. So none of this makes sense to me, because for them in the Western Conference to make the playoffs, to win the last game against my Spurs, they basically did my Spurs in. And of course, you know how I am. I didn't love it that Pop went straight to him at the buzzer and hugged him and was so happy for him. And I was so not happy for my Spurs, because I knew in my heart of hearts they had just fallen from the 2 seed to the 6 seed, and they're going to have to face the Clippers in the first round, and it was not going to be pretty. Still went to the end of the 7th game. But my point is, for them to blow my Spurs off the floor, that's basically what happened in a playoff for the playoffs game. Thanks to this coach and this superstar. What's not to like about that? So I'm a little lost here. If you can argue to me right now that Thibodeau will bring a defensive toughness and mindset that this team hasn't had before, I guess you could give me that, but I'm not sure about that. And I'm not sure the superstar is going to flourish under Thibodeau, certainly any more than he did under Monty Williams. So I was astonished by it, to be honest with you. I cannot justify this firing. I don't get it.
Neither do I. But the thing about it, what saves some of these folks in the league that think differently than, say, I do, is that a guy like Tom Thibodeau, for example, one would argue he shouldn't lose his job in Chicago. But he's on a hot seat, and the belief is that if he loses this series, he's not going to get it done. Now, you know, when you speak to the reporters, the great Sam Smith and so many others in Chicago, they respect the heck out of him, but also remind you that, you know what, they haven't been but so successful in the postseason under Thibodeau, but he's still considered an exceptional coach. So it makes sense for New Orleans or anybody else to look at him, Skip, because he works hard. He's completely committed to the task at hand. They have successful regular seasons. He's religiously in the postseason, so there's always a chance. You could see something like that. But I'll bring up Dave Yeager for the Memphis Grizzlies. Skip, I respect this man and the job that he's done. I don't want to cast any aspersions on him. But he got the job in part highlighting how it was going to be a different brand of basketball that was going to be played in Memphis. 2 weeks in, he realized that Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol are your bread and butter. So what am I going to do? The same thing that Lionel Hollins was doing all along, which got them to the Western Conference Finals. All right, the year that Lionel Hollins was let go, after they get to the conference finals, they let him go. And you bring in somebody that's doing the same thing. Well, what? His relationship with analytics, with Hollinger and the crew in Memphis, not to cast aspersions on them, because I respect the heck out of them, but I'm just simply saying, your relationship is what got you, is keeping the job. Lionel Hollins was doing the same job. Okay. But he's out of a job, and he was lucky to land in Brooklyn. And those are the kind of things that I'm talking about, because everybody can't be Doc Rivers, Skip. They're not going to get a job where Chris Paul's your point guard, and Blake Griffin is your superstar forward, and you still got DeAndre Jordan and Jamal Crawford. They're usually getting the jobs where you got to build from the ground up, and then you got a star like Anthony Davis, and now you let Monty go so he helps develop the kid. The kid kid's going to be the best player in the world within 3 years.
He will.
But Monty's gone, so somebody else comes along and gets the credit.
Okay.
There's something wrong with that, man.
Now, to your bigger picture point, I think you just put the bat signal up in the sky for the best player on the planet to speak out on this. I think you just said that we need to hear from LeBron James about this, right? Because no one is more powerful in this league to represent this case. It's got to start with LeBron if you want someone to speak out.
I don't want one person to speak out. I want the collective body of players to sit there and say, look, we all represent the NBA. We know that you have a fabulous reputation with diversity. At least once upon a time, there were 13 black coaches in the league. But it's almost 80% of us are African American.
Okay.
Chris Paul is the president of the Players Association, who happens to be playing for one of the best coaches in the game. So he should be there with LeBron, too. Kobe, Melo, D. Rose, all of them.
Kevin
Just
Durant.
highlight that.
I agree.
Can't ignore that. Kevin, all of them. All of them.
I'm with you. I agree. It's time for that.
In all of this discussion, some way that people at the league office wanted to put some type of, hit on the most popular, iconic player in the league, the real face of the league, it just doesn't make any sense. It's really a ridiculous allegation. What drove the decision in this report was one thing. It was the evidence. And I could not ethically ignore the import and relevancy of those text messages and the other evidence.
Our NFL analyst Ryan Clark joins the desk. Ted Wells, you heard him adamantly defending himself and that report, so we are putting him on the hook. Ryan, what do you make of him defending the report?
I think it was a situation to where he felt like his character and his integrity were at stake here. If you're a man that does the business he does, which he's a lawyer, you're not in the forefront of scrutiny the way that he is now. He's at the front of this thing, but people forget he wasn't the person who handed down the suspension. He didn't levy the punishment. He simply went looking for information. And I think the one thing throughout that call that I found telling, he said, listen, when I was appointed to this, Mr. Kraft welcomed me on to be the person to investigate this. And if the New England Patriots had a problem then that's when they should have said it. He said, don't say it when it comes out and the report's not in your favor. And I think for him, it was a situation where finally he had to speak up. He had to say, guys, this wasn't a witch hunt. I was sent in to do a job. The same way I was sent in to do a job with Jonathan Martin, with Rich Incognito in Miami. I was doing a job that I had done before and people applauded me for. And if you had an issue with me being appointed to this case, you should have said it then, not when it comes out and it's not in your favor. So for me, I just saw a man who felt like his integrity was at stake. Future career jobs were at stake as well if people found him to be a man who didn't do his job in the way it was intended to be done. And so he had to defend himself. And a lot of people use words like he was fierce or forceful. I just thought he was being a man and owning up to what he had to do and what he done.
Stephen A., you want to go?
I have nothing to add because that's exactly what I was saying initially.
Good. I have a lot to add.
Right on the money.
Okay. To me, Ryan, and I already convinced Stephen A. of this, I think, to start the show, I thought this came off as a sign of weakness of a man of stature who has been at the forefront. Yes.
You didn't convince me that.
You were completely convinced in our A block.
Do you have something to say now, Steve?
Now you
Is
talk.
you have something to say?
Is that true?
Oh.
Okay.
Oh, I
No,
thought
I'm just saying that's not true. That's all.
You know you're not.
I thought it was cease and desist
No.
on your part, the A block. You said you got me. Okay.
Now go ahead, but don't lie about me. No, you did not convince me. Go ahead.
I thought it showed a little insecurity on his part, a little uncertainty on his part, because when you have X months and 243 pages to come to a conclusion in a report, you have to let it speak for itself. And to dismiss Don Yee's allegations as ridiculous is fine, but if they're ridiculous, you shouldn't publicly respond to them. I don't believe that Roger Goodell loved it, that he did a conference call with reporters to respond to specific allegations, and then he got caught flat-footed on the one glaring discrepancy in the Wells report. Again, it's difficult to talk about on television because it's so complex, about two gauges that were used to judge the football's PSI. And Walt Coleman, the head referee, could not remember which gauge he used before the game, and then the two gave different readings at halftime. One reading was legal. So it's a glaring discrepancy, and trust me, it's going to come up if this gets to court, and it could be the undoing of the Wells report. And on the conference call, we didn't hear this audio, but he handed off, he punted to his partner and let him answer the question, and he did so vaguely at best. So again, I don't think he did himself any good. Maybe you do, but again, I thought it was advantage Tom Brady, because I think his legal team would love it that he's trying to fire back at them.
Well, I don't know if it's an advantage Tom Brady or if he did himself a disservice, because I don't think it was meant to be either way. He was just answering the questions and answering the things that Don Yee was saying, and I think he had a right to do so. It's not a situation. He's no longer, right now, he's not representing the NFL. He's representing Ted Wells, the man, and I think that's who's being attacked. Is they're not attacking the NFL, saying, okay, the NFL is wrong for this or wrong for that. Don Yee was specifically attacking the report done by Ted Wells. So as a man, he's defending what he does in his integrity. So I don't see it as, oh, you lost, and when we go to court, there's going to be ways to use what he did in this press conference against him. Now they can attack the report.
Okay, but I think Don Yee hit a hot button deep under his skin, because the facts are the facts that Mr. Wells and his law firm have had a long-term lucrative relationship with the National Football League. Is that fair to say? Because they represented all the concussion lawsuits. They obviously did, as you pointed out, the bullying investigation of the Dolphins, and now this one. And reports have their compensation between $4 and $5 million for this. And again, what the Brady side keeps bringing up is it cost you $5 million to come to a conclusion of more probable than not that Tom Brady generally knew something was being done to the football.
Which he also explained in civil cases, which just as much like is all you need for a burden of proof.
Well, speaking of burden of proof, I think this is it's headed for court.
Okay,
it's going to go through go ahead.
Let's talk about that. Adam Schefter, obviously, as we talked about earlier, said that he's hearing now that Tom Brady's putting together an unreal legal team, and he thinks more than likely, according to his source, the suspension could be reduced or overturned. In your opinion, how likely is that to happen?
Obviously, I kind of felt like the NFL set it high and set it at 4, so it could be reduced in some way if it needed to be. I don't think it's going to get reduced to 0. It's very seldom that suspensions get reduced to 0. It's very seldom that you even get fines reduced to 0 when you prove that you're correct. They went out and got Jeffrey Kessler, somebody I'm very familiar with.
I know you are.
Through being
and what do you think of him?
Oh, he's a dog.
He's a dog.
Yeah, straight up. Like
a bulldog.
He's a go-getter. Yeah, he's a go-getter. And so if I were in Tom Brady's position, I would go get Jeffrey Kessler too. I mean, Freeman McNeil, Reggie White. I mean, he's been going at the NFL for years, so he's the man you're supposed to go get in this type of situation. Also, the NFLPA is going to have to back him. The NFLPA is going to represent him. They're going to be a part of this appeals process. So it's going to be, I don't know how long and drawn out it'll be, but they want to go for 0 games.
You think it'll be 2?
I think it'll be 2.
Okay, remember, they don't even care about the appeals process. Yeah. They are targeting going to court here.
Yeah.
And they don't want 2 games because that would be some admission of guilt.
Right.
Tom Brady's telling confidants, I am 100% innocent and I was wrongly convicted. They're going for 0 or bust here.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be tough. I truly don't believe that he'll get 0 games. I think it'll show weakness on the side of the NFL if they do that. It'll also show they weren't sure about this punishment initially. If that's allowed to happen.
It sounds like you're saying they weren't sure anyway if they set it at 4 with the idea that he would appeal.
Well, if you look at all these situations, take it back to Ben Roethlisberger, who was originally set to miss 6 games, and then it was appealed down to 4. The NFL just has a history of doing these things, setting them high and allowing people to appeal, and throughout the appeal, knocking it down a little bit. So it's not necessarily whether or not they were sure or not when they did it. This is just kind of a pattern of behavior that they have.
Okay, last point before Stephen A. goes. Again and again, we've talked about how Tom Brady has not defended himself publicly the way we have wanted him to try to defend himself, if in fact he's capable, if he's not delusional here. But privately, I'm hearing he wants to go to legal war here. So that's why he went and got Kessler. He's got Don Yee. These are superstar attorneys. And he doesn't want to do it publicly. He wants to do it in courts of NFL law or in America's court of law.
Right, but do you remember initially they asked him the day after, when it all came out, did you cheat? And he said,
I don't believe so.
And he said, I don't believe so. Like, it's not a belief. It's not a belief. If you didn't cheat,
no,
you don't cheat.
He's weakly defended himself in public, but in private, I think you're going to see a whole different Tom Brady. Go ahead, Stephen A.
You want to add something on here?
He can show whatever he wants privately. The fact of the matter is his public comments are a matter of record. All of this stuff also falls under NFL bylaws. In the end, if we want to bring up collective bargaining, if we want to bring up the court system, let's remind ourselves, which Ryan can speak to a lot more, intimately than me. The courts themselves are averse to getting involved when collective bargaining has taken place. They are inclined to push it back to the league to deal with. Everybody's forgetting that. NFL bylaws, according to their language, the way Ted Wells incriminated Tom Brady, that's all he has to do. And then it was up to Roger Goodell, in conjunction with NFL Executive VP Troy Vincent, to come to the conclusion. Now, from what I'm told, they were in the room. Roger Goodell got the opinions and recommendations of various individuals, Troy Vincent being foremost amongst them, and then he made his ruling. So in the end, it's not Ted Wells' report that Tom Brady has to fight against. It's Roger Goodell's judgment based on a report, which means you have to deal with Roger Goodell. And if you have to deal with Roger Goodell, you have to deal with the power bestowed upon him by the league, which the Players Association never debunked.
Okay, yes.
Period.
Yet you told me earlier in the show that you will not be surprised if Tom Brady and his legal team get this reduced to 0 games.
Because that's happened in the past where, okay, you missed games or you missed out on enough money or whatever. Somebody comes along, make the recommendation to reduce. All right, Roger Goodell's not going to fight it. Task accomplished. Tom Brady and the New England Patriots have been taken to the woodshed. The message has been sent, and nothing is going to eradicate that.
Agree?
I agree with that. The message has been sent. I just still don't think he gets 0 games. I don't agree with that part.
Yeah, it might be difficult to do.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Odell Beckham Jr., finalist for the Madden NFL 16 cover. To vote right now, head over to ESPN.com/Madden Vote. And be sure to tune in tonight at 6 Eastern, when he or Rob Gronkowski, the finalist, will be revealed as the winner. It is a pleasure to have you here, lad.
Absolutely.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Stephen A., you want to say hello before we get
up?
started?
What's going on, man?
What's going on, big time?
Not much. How you doing?
Good to see you, man.
Absolutely.
Okay,
right.
so for I was going to talk to you about the catch. I was going to talk to you about being the Rookie of the Year, and I want to talk about the Cavs. I think I'm going to go straight to the Cavs because that video went viral. So you're just sitting at home, you watch LeBron, you just say, let me just post that. What was your reaction? What made you put that up?
It's just natural. You know, for me, it was an in the moment thing, and not thinking that it would go viral. It's just something. You know, I'm one of the biggest LeBron fans. People tend to claim the bandwagon fan. If I was a Heat fan last year, and if LeBron played for the Milwaukee Bucks, I'd be a Milwaukee Bucks fan. You know what I mean? He's my favorite player. So to see him hit that shot in such a clutch game and such a clutch moment, it was just a natural instinct for me.
So you went to the Cavs game last night. You're a little tired. You pick up a little I'm gonna get you some coffee or some tea because you were a little tired. Tell me about your relationship with LeBron. What are you guys good friends? Are you just a fan? You get to hang out in the locker room? What is it about LeBron that you love so much? And obviously make your prediction for the Cavs.
They're gonna win it all.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm playing. It's just something about him. You know, someone who's criticized so much and still every single day in and day out, he's great. And I just love his game. I love what he brings to every single team that he's on. And you know, I'm gonna support him. You know, right or wrong. You know, he's my favorite player, and I would love to see him, you know, take one home in Cleveland for his hometown, but. You never know what's going to happen with that.
You want to. You can't claim it, though, but you would like to see it.
Can't claim it, but I would love to see it.
All right. Stephen A., any questions?
Well, I want to get to the New York Giants, man, because obviously you're big time, and I'm thinking about the kind of pass and attack you guys can have this year with Randall, with a healthy Victor Cruz returning. I want to know what your expectations are for this team, considering the fact that y'all are off a 6-10 year, and obviously with Victor Cruz going down, it wasn't the same. What do you expect for yourself, and what do you expect from your New York Giants this year?
I think it's going to be a serious season this year. I think that every time the Giants have had a bad year, they always come back strong. And, you know, we got a couple great pickups. You know, we got another running back who can come in on a third down or something like that, and a 3rd and 4, Shane Vereen, and he catch something out the backfield and keep the drive going. You know, people tend to talk about, you know, we're 6-10, but I look back at the season and I see moments that, you know, could have changed the game around, and it was just plays that we weren't making, and it was all on us. And, you know, Eli's came back, and it seems like his arms gotten even stronger. He's throwing the ball a lot harder, and I'm watching Vic work out on the sideline, kind of the same as it was when I was hurt last year, and I was the one working out on the sideline, and just thinking about the things that, you know, Vic and Ruben and I could do. You know, it's cliche to say, but I think the sky's the limit.
I have just one point of order to make here.
Not again.
That was the greatest catch I've ever seen. But help me out here, Terry. Maybe you remember.
Maybe.
What was the final score of that game? Who won that game?
Oh, come on, Cowboys fans.
I'm just trying to remember. What? Well, wait. The Cowboys won that game. They did win, didn't they?
Right, I think so.
Des Bryant.
You think so? He's not for sure.
Wait, the winning touchdown was caught by Des Bryant. Now, you're a fine young receiver, but you're no Des Bryant, right?
Please, knock it off. Be respectful. Okay, so honestly, who's the best receiver ever to play the game outside of you?
Ever to play the game?
In your opinion?
No, wait a second. We didn't get the Des.
Listen.
Who's the best receiver right now?
That's a tough call. I think Antonio Brown's doing it the most right now. He's one of my favorite. He's one of the smaller guys too, one of the explosive playmakers. So I love watching him play. I've watched him for a long time now. So I guess I would have to say he's on top.
And what's your view of Des?
Oh, Des is a great. I love the way he plays. I love the intensity he brings to the game. He's actually, believe it or not, he's a rival, but he's a good friend of mine. Okay. So it's nothing but respect on that end, and I love the way he plays and, you know, what he brings to his team.
Okay, so who's the best receiver ever to play the game in your opinion?
That's tough to say.
Got a Mount Rushmore?
I think I would go with 3 of them. I think I would go with Chris Carter, Randy Moss, and Jerry Rice.
In that order?
No, not in that order, but it's hard to say. You know, it's hard to say the order of it. Actually, I was very young for that era anyway, so I think you guys would be able to judge it better. But those are probably the 3 guys who I've watched the most.
And before I let you go, why do you think you should be on the cover of NFL 16?
That's up to y'all. You know, to me, it's honestly, I dreamed about it as I was a kid. You know, how cool it would be to be on a Madden cover. How great it would be to even be in the NFL, and all these blessings are now here in front of me, and it's just so surreal to me to even be considered, you know, after 1 year playing football in the league, to be on the Madden cover. Huge. Yeah, so of course I would love to win, but you know, just even the thought alone of them putting me in the category with it is good enough for me.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
from the plate, safe at the plate,
right through the World Series.
For the 3rd time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
Okay, so the fight of the century may not have lived up to all the hype inside the ring, but outside, it generated more than $500 million in total revenue, including $4.4 million in U.S. pay-per-view buys and more than $400 million in domestic pay-per-view revenue, according to Showtime and HBO. The Livegate receipts for Mayweather-Pacquiao at the MGM Grand totaled $71 million, breaking previous records set of just a measly $20 million with the Mayweather-Alvarez fight. Now that the numbers are in, Stephen A., and they are some numbers to behold, does this, in your opinion, justify a rematch?
Absolutely not. doesn't justify a rematch at all. Just because the fight generated all of those buys doesn't mean the actual fight that took place was compelling enough to justify a rematch. Only what transpires in the ring justifies a rematch, not what happens in terms of pay-per-view sales and what have you. But I'll tell you another reason, Skip Bayless, that it does not justify a rematch.
Yeah.
Because it actually works in reverse. If you're Floyd, why bother? You beat him, number one. Number two, he's whining about the injury that took place supposedly before the fight instead of during the fight.
It did.
As Floyd Money Mayweather has articulated on many occasions, he can't win. It doesn't matter. If he fights, there's an excuse. If he doesn't fight, he's running. I mean, the list goes on and on. So he got his money. Floyd is obviously going to get at least an additional $100 million. So that will mean he made over $200 million for one night's work, okay? As far as I'm concerned, if I'm him, why bother? Why waste your time? Just like he said.
Okay. So, first of
Got
all,
his money.
Point number one. Immediately after the fight, Floyd thanked God for the victory. He should be thanking God right now for Manny Pacquiao. Do you think he could have generated this record revenue fighting Amir Khan? I mean, come on. Manny brought half the battle to this. Again, the fight did not live up because Manny Pacquiao tore his rotator cuff 2.5 weeks before this fight. So the only reason for a rematch is if Floyd Mayweather Jr. actually wants to prove something about his legacy, because he proved zero on May the 2nd. Zero. I'm going to borrow your word, he schooled a one-armed man. He ran from a man in need of serious shoulder surgery the next day. The next day. Serious. It's going to keep him out for an entire year. So if Floyd Mayweather may or may not weather, if he wants to actually may or may not prove something, let's do it again. Yeah. That's the only reason, because he proved nothing. There's still an asterisk on his record. He beat a one-armed man.
Not going to work.
For victory number 48.
What's not going to work, Stephen A?
That worked before the fight, which was why it was a mega fight, because for years Floyd Mayweather was accused of running from Manny Pacquiao.
And that's all he did on that Saturday night. He ran.
Hold on. Skip had everything to do with that. Called him a chicken.
He was a chicken for 5 years.
He's running from Manny Pacquiao. He's run. Well, listen. Well, Manny couldn't catch him before. He had every opportunity to catch him on May 2nd.
He caught him in the 4th round and in the 6th round in the corner, and he pummeled him.
That's catching him. That's catching him. Hitting his elbows, hitting his elbows and his arms. That's catching him. Really? Whatever the case may be.
So,
he had an opportunity.
It's not going to work.
He missed it.
Okay, he missed it.
It's not going to work.
Not going to work.
It's not going to work. And by the way, Manny needs the money. Floyd does not.
Oh.
In conclusion,
if you know boxing, you know that Manny Pacquiao won the fight. He was the aggressor in at least 7 of the 12 rounds. And I was always taught, silly me, aggressors win rounds. 7-5, 115 to 113 on points.
But you're the same guy. But you're the same guy.
You even lost the fight. You lost everything. You lost your credibility beating a one-armed man.
You're the same guy. Skip Bayless is the same guy that picked Sugar Ray Leonard over Hagler, even though Hagler was the aggressor.
Oh, please.
You're that same guy.
Sugar Ray,
but when it comes to Manny Pacquiao,
Sugar Ray actually played some offense, this thing called offense, instead of being the greatest defensive fighter ever, the greatest escape artist.
That's not his
and
problem.
Ugly up that fight, it was unwatchable because of Floyd Mayweather Jr. and his style.
Ask your question, Stephen.
All of those who know,
stop it.
Skip just wants to talk because he doesn't want to answer my question. So he wants to gloss over it. Did Floyd Mayweather, the escape artist that he is, the defensive wizard that he is there anything about that fight that you did not know coming into the fight?
I thought he might actually engage with Manny Pacquiao. That was all the build-up to the fight. Floyd saying, I ain't running, I'm going to engage. He engaged when?
Wait a minute.
He pop-shotted.
You just lied.
Hit and ran.
You just lied to the American public. You just lied. You said before the fight. You said before the fight, Floyd doesn't engage.
That's why Freddie Roach and Manny Pacquiao are talking all of this stuff, because they're trying to get him to engage.
Yeah.
But it won't matter, Stephen A., because he's never been in the ring with somebody with this foot quickness, with this hand speed. They're gonna get him. So you knew what Floyd was going to do. You just surmised that Manny Pacquiao would be able to take him anyway, and you were wrong. I'm so surprised. I'm so surprised. Skip Bayless was wrong.
All that mattered
surprised.
was what I did not know before the fight. I'm close to lots of people in the camp. Nobody told me. Yeah. Torn rotator cuff. Well, help me out here. I got one last question for you.
Yeah.
Did Manny Pacquiao have serious shoulder surgery the next day? Did he have it? Did he have surgery?
You should not.
Oh, he did have surgery. Well, isn't the proof in the pudding of the surgery? He had surgery. He's out for a year. Oh, way to go, Floyd. I'm so impressed.
Hey, Kerry Champion.
You ran from a one-arm man, Floyd. I dare you to fight him
again. In the 4th round and the 6th round with the rotator cuff. Keep throwing flurries in the 4th and 6th round. But his rotator cuff was torn.
Resilience. Yeah.
Apparently he tore it in the 4th round.
Yeah. Run, Floyd, run. You ran from a one-arm man. Stephen A., how can you back this guy? How can you support this escape artist? I thought it was called boxing, not running.
Rematch nowhere.
Because he's a brilliant defensive technician.
Escaping.
Let's
play escape. You win, Floyd. You're the best. Way to go. Impress, Floyd.
That's right.
Retire
he doesn't
on
have
your
to look
$200
at
million.
Don't waste this time with Pacquiao.
Run into the
there
sunset.
There will be no rematch. Oh, he's running away now. Into the sunset with his $200 million.
He had his chance.
People around the world, particularly children, particularly boys, do look up to Tom Brady. He is somebody who has a reputation for professionalism. He's somebody who has enjoyed tremendous success on the football field and has carried himself off the field in a way that has earned the respect of a lot of people. And I think that as he confronts this particular situation and he determines what the next steps will be for him, that he'll be mindful of the way that he serves to be, the way he serves as a role model to so many, not just American kids, as you point out, but to kids around the world.
Everybody from Foxborough to the White House is weighing in on one Tom Brady. That was the press secretary saying that Brady is considered a role model and should be held to the highest standards. And while Patriots fans are standing in solidarity with their quarterback, there's also been some Tom Brady bashing, so to speak. An anonymous group of Jets fans purchased space on 12 electronic billboards in northern Jersey and placed a green message on them that reads, as you can see, #TomShady. So let's talk about this. What do you make of all the Brady bashing? Skip, you first.
Stephen A. Smith, first I want to talk about this man, Josh Earnest. I don't pretend to know much about him. I'm not a political animal the way you are, so I'm watching from a distance, but he's a longtime aide, of course, to our president, now the press secretary for our president. I'm never sure whether he's speaking for our president or speaking for Josh Earnest. Maybe he just likes his platform that he has now, and he's speaking out. But that's the second time yesterday that he has been out of bounds, in my opinion, speaking about Tom Brady. The first time, he cracked a joke about the press conference that Tom Brady gave the week before the Super Bowl, and we agreed that it was the week before a weak press conference. But he made a joke about it that, according to some reports, or at least some speculation, was the reason that Tom Brady chose not to go to the White House with his football team to be celebrated for winning the Super Bowl. Then yesterday, I think he was coming across as admonishing Tom Brady for not living up to his responsibility of being a role model for kids not only in this country but around the world. So again, he is leaping to the conclusion that Tom Brady, from what I'm told, has not leaped to. Tom Brady is telling his confidants, I am 100% innocent here. I'm going to fight it if we have to go to court. So isn't this a little premature and a little out of bounds for a man speaking for our president to say you're not living up to your responsibility of being a role model? Man. So given this, I can't blame Tom Brady for not going to the White House to be celebrated with his football team.
First things first, Skip Bayless. The sign, Tom Shady, inappropriate, unprofessional, lacks decorum, but clearly understandable because Tom Brady has beaten up on the Jets for so much It's clearly a sign of jealousy and envy more so than anything else.
Okay.
If the New York Jets had an opportunity to have Tom Brady, they would literally walk to his doorstep and bow before him as if he were the king or a pharaoh or something, for crying out loud. So we understand what that is. So let's just shove that out of the way. As it pertains to the press secretary, I totally agree with you. It was out of bounds. It was excessive. It was uncalled for. It's not his place. And he was wrong to do that, especially when you consider saying Tom Brady and mentioning the words role model as if for some reason Tom Brady is not a role model. Tom Brady is still a role model. Tom Brady has still been class personified. And regardless of this particular transgression, which I believe is legit, there is no question in my mind that it does not take away from the great person as well as the great professional that Tom Brady has been throughout his illustrious career. When we talk about role models in this world, and you see some of the nonsense that has taken place on the part of professional athletes, to sit there and to just lump Tom Brady into that pool just because of Deflategate, that's egregious, particularly coming from somebody in the White House. That is just inexcusable, and I think he should be reprimanded for it, to be quite honest with you. Having said all of that, I still stand by what I said. Tom Brady should have showed up at that White House. That is the President of the United States of America. You did make it a point to show up to the three previous trips to the White House under a different president. I do not believe he should have snubbed this one. And if you're going to do it, I still believe he should have been forthcoming in saying why he didn't show up instead of something as vague as family commitment, when reports that followed said that he was at the Patriots practice facility while the rest of the team was at the White House. So I definitely think that Tom Brady was wrong for doing that. Why he elected to do so, I don't know. But if Tom Brady, I think Tom Brady should have been forthcoming. But if the White House has a problem with it, it certainly shouldn't be communicated through the press secretary about Tom Brady, especially considering the sports fan that our president, Barack Obama, is. I definitely think it's sensible to say he is more than qualified to speak for himself rather than have somebody speaking for him.
Okay.
So I don't disagree with anything that you're saying.
I'm with you. If this, in fact, was the reason, the crack joke from this Josh Earnest, during the Super Bowl, week before the Super Bowl, if that's the reason Tom didn't go, I wish he had been more upfront about that. But can you put yourself in his shoes? Wouldn't that have been offensive enough to you that you might say, well, then I'm not going to go? If that's how you're going to treat me publicly, you're going to have your press secretary ridicule me to the national media? I mean, I could see where you might get offended if the roles were reversed.
But it was a joke. And it was a joke on the part of the White House press secretary, and it's entirely plausible that because it was a joke, as opposed to that statement yesterday, that the joke itself from weeks ago was something of his doing as opposed to the president. See, yesterday, it gave the indication that that was something he was authorized to
I
do.
agree.
As opposed to the joke from weeks ago, which came across as an off-the-cuff, completely isolated comment on his part, not that of the president nor his administration.
That is a point well taken. I believe leading into the joke, he said, I have not spoken to the president about this matter, about Deflategate. So he was off the cuff making a joke about him, his job. Tom Brady won't take my job. It was a bad joke, but it was a joke nonetheless. But why do you think he would then speak out yesterday, maybe for the president? What would prompt this? Do you think it's in bounds for the president to prompt him to speak out about being a role model?
Well, I would say this. If the president is standing up before a pool of reporters who cover the White House, and he's asked a direct question about Tom Brady, I think the president is within his right to comment about anything he so chooses. He's the leader of the free world. He's the president of the United States. He's highly educated, very intellectual and thoughtful. He's not flawless. Everybody makes mistakes. But the bottom line is he has the authority. By giving him 69 million votes and plus, we have authorized him
Sure,
to
I buy
speak
that.
primarily on our behalf.
Yeah.
So if you ask him a question, I have no problem with him answering it. But the White House press secretary shouldn't be that individual doing it.
I don't like it either. I agree.
Aaron Rodgers is the only contestant on the program today who grew hair for his appearance.
And I think you should consider some sort of celebration after a good show. I will take number 12 for 200, Alex.
Led the NBA in assists for 9 straight seasons. Aaron.
Who is John Stockton?
Good. Aaron.
What is a bald eagle?
Yes. Aaron.
Who is Moses?
Good. Aaron.
Who is Jennifer Lopez?
Yes. A model or pattern or a barfly on Cheers.
Who is Norm?
Norman, right, yeah. Aaron is looking pretty happy now. Did he come up with the correct response? What did he wrote down? Who are Ernst and Young? Motorcycles. Who are Harley and Davidson? But will it cost him too much? No. He is the winner today. His charity, the Match Fund, will receive $50,000.
Little smile. He's so proud of himself. You see that? He's like, I'm a bad man. Yes. Is there anything he cannot do? He won Celebrity Jeopardy. He beat out astronaut Mark Kelly. And I don't know if you guys watched Shark Tank. That was Kevin O'Leary. He's an entrepreneur. Stephen A's just like, what else? I mean, my man can do it all.
Well, wait a second.
Hold on. We got to say where the money goes.
Okay, go ahead.
$50,000 for his chosen charity, which is Midwest Athletes Against Childhood
All right,
Cancer.
Fine.
Skip, your reaction.
Yeah, by the way, he had a hard time throwing a football in the NFC Championship game, but we won't go there for this one. Stephen A. Smith, I am here to tell you, I have never, ever been more impressed with Aaron Rodgers than I was last night. Aaron and I share one thing and one thing only in this world, and that is our love for Jeopardy. It is my favorite show, and I so admire the guts and courage it took for Aaron to risk his knowledge in a very different field of play, because obviously it's not football, it's not athletics, although he did get a couple of questions sports-wise that were a little layups. Well, that's a layup, John Stockton for Aaron Rodgers. But still, he missed final. That's fine. He still won. But I'm highly impressed. To me, Stephen A., what he did last night, and I didn't get to watch it because you know what I did? I was watching the Cavs from 7 to 7:30 Eastern. Ernestine and I watch all 5 Jeopardies from the week in a row on Friday night. We do it every Friday night. It's just what we do. It's it's our favorite show. So I was more impressed with Aaron Rodgers' victory last night than I was with. He did win a Super Bowl, didn't he? Oh, yeah, he did. He won a Super Bowl. It's a long time ago.
Bayless.
But I was more impressed last night.
Stephen A., your turn, my friend.
He's a bad man, Skip Bayless. You know what? There's a third person. My mama, my lovely mother, Janet Smith. She loves herself some Jeopardy. She never misses it. She didn't know who Aaron Rodgers was because my mother has listen, my mother just learned who ESPN was 5 years ago. She's an EPSN, whatever it is. That's what she does. That's how she feels about sports. She doesn't pay any attention to it. Okay, but the deal is that I got to tell you, I mean, he was very, very impressive. Just showed his intellectual brilliance yet again. We know he's the best thrower in football. We know all around from a talent perspective. He's the best quarterback in football because of his talent, his ability to run and throw. We know that. But then his intellectual brilliance just came shining through Skip Bayless. I loved it.
Yeah, it's like
exactly.
Just quick point of order. The best quarterback in football is obviously Tom Brady, the Super Bowl MVP, beat one of the all-time great defenses, Seattle Seahawks MVP, blah, 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 blah.
I said
You know
most
all this.
talented.
Just for
I
the
said
record.
most talented. But go ahead.
But you are exactly
Tom Brady
right.
can throw.
He can throw a little bit. He can't throw like Tom Brady. But the point is, this was, again, Olivia Munn is, what do you say?
His girlfriend. They wanted her to be on the show.
Yeah, they wanted her to be on, and he said, no, I want to be on. It's my favorite show. Way to go, Aaron.
Well, no, I was told she didn't want to participate.
Yeah, right.
She has other things going on.
Well, it's scary. It would be a scary proposition.
She does have a lot going on.
Bulls forward Taj Gibson ejected from last night's Bulls-Cavs game in the fourth quarter. Stephen A. for kicking Cavaliers guard Matthew Dellavedova. Tell me, what was your, skip you first. What was your reaction to the play?
I thought, Stephen A., that Taj got a raw deal. I did not think he should have been ejected on the play. I think you and I have agreed over the last couple of years the NBA has gone a little overboard. The new NBA the slightest indiscretion, any what we used to call a playoff foul that pushed the envelope was a little bit over the edge, boom, it's either an ejection or it's one of those flagrant ones. And I don't love it because Dellavedova started it with the leg lock. He was the perpetrator. And again, it should have just been another play on, just separate them. But it appeared at first glance like Taj was kicking him when in fact he was trying to kick free of him, which he is well within the rules to do. So in the old NBA, that would have been next. And in this NBA, Taj got wrongly ejected. And I did not like it for his sake or for the game's sake, because I don't think the fans loved that he got ejected.
I agree with you, Skip. I think that the fans themselves are being screwed over here, because I think this is what the NBA needs to understand. We understand they don't want fisticuffs and stuff like that. But by and large, most of these guys really know how to act. And just because they get in a little tussle or a shoving match and their adrenaline, elevates, it gets everybody excited. As long as there are no fisticuffs thrown, as long as there's no fisticuff that takes place, it shouldn't be an issue. The fans get cheated when you take guys out of the game like that. That's nothing in the past. It's unnecessary. It's excessive.
Stephen A., how do you think the league corrects it, if they can? Because it was clear he was in a leg lock.
I think the league should just adopt the mentality that as long as no punches are thrown and people aren't fighting, then you know what? Just because a little tussle takes place and folks have to be restrained, that's not a big deal. That gets us all heightened because we realize how much they care and how hard they're competing, and it gives us the impression that we're getting our money's worth. Especially with guys sitting out games during the regular season. I mean, the least you can do is just let them play once playoff time comes.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
That leg lock reminded me of all the headlocks that Floyd put on Manny during that fight.
You can't leave it
just out of bounds.
You just got to have one more just before we get out of here, just in case. Just in case.
He just lost.
He didn't have time.
He's lost. I know it's hard for you to
accept.
accept.
In case Floyd's watching,
but
just let him know. Okay, we're done. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific on ESPN2.